I may be a vet, but people don't listen to me either sometimes, right? Like they usually come when there is a problem, when there is when they didn't listen and then there's a problem, then they come
Exactly.
and they
Yes.
want to listen, right? So it's I much prefer prevention, but I know how the world works and how life works. We usually wait until, pardon my language, shit hits the fan, and then
Right.
then
Yes.
Welcome to the Functional Dog Podcast. Here is your host, Saro from Saro Dog Training.
All right. Okay. So let's start with the first kind of a question. Can you tell us a bit about yourself? When did you start being, involved with vet industry, and becoming a vet? And how did you fall in love with dogs and all that?
oh my goodness, long story. Many years back, in the mid '90s, I used to ride horses, and one of my horses was affected by tendonitis, and I felt really helpless. I couldn't really help her. So I decided to go. I wanted to go to vet school, and my dad was a vet, and he wasn't really happy about me making a decision to go to the vet school because he had plans for my sister to go to the vet school. So he wanted me to be an architect, and I put my brakes on, and, and I basically decided to go to vet school, and then I graduated after a lot of hard work. It's actually I wouldn't want to go through it again, but it was worth it. At the same time, I was very conventional, and then I moved to Canada, and I became even more conventional because I had to pass through the Canadian National Board exams for veterinarians, and I actually ended up being one of the top sellers of kibble, believe it or not, in the mid '90s. It's really hard to believe because I've since switched completely, and I've been
Mm,
recommending and feeding raw or cooked diet for the last at least 25 years.
mm,
And it's been a real eye-opening experience. Some of the things that I've learned from obviously from my patients and also from my clients who were open-minded. And then I started a veterinary clinic in North Vancouver. And I worked there for about 10 years. And then after 10 years, I thought, this is really ridiculous. I have the same problems and cases coming in just with different dogs and different guardians or owners, but the same problems were repeating. So I thought, how can I create a situation where I would actually help people to prevent these problems or help them to solve them on their own without, paying a lot of money for making their dogs healthier. And often it didn't happen that way anyway.
mm,
So I decided I started kind of soul searching what I wanted to do, and I decided to actually sell the practice and start online work and writing and teaching people how to keep their dogs healthy. And then eventually I thought, okay, well, that's one thing to tell people what to do, but I didn't really have the tools to do it with. So I started formulating different products and supplements, and we kind of took it to the next level. We tested on humans. We joked that we tested on
mm,
humans, my team and I, and we started having really good results with mineral support and fermented vitamins and sustainable omegas and different things, and wound healing without chemicals, and 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 tick and flea products without the chemical part. So it's been a real fun journey. On top of that, I kind of thought, if we are not healthy and happy as humans, we cannot have healthy and happy dogs. So this year we are launching a human supplement line as well. So it's been like I kind of let the river of my work flow and see where it takes me.
mm.
And it's been a really exciting journey. I Yeah, I'm very grateful for all the good people that I've had in my life. And sometimes there have been obstacles and people who didn't really like what I was doing. And that was fine too, because it just kind of kept me on my toes and helped me to evolve and be humble
Oh,
and all that.
couple of points there. So you're saying you used to promote kibble, which leads me to next question. What changed your mind to go from kibble to fresh food, and also tell us about the benefits of fresh food and also the negative effects of kibble.
You have these big questions, but I'm going to try to answer them as succinctly as possible. So kibble. Well, I kind of believe that kibble was the right way to go because that's what we were taught at school, and also that's what the pet food companies told us. Eventually, I realized they were just telling us to sell their product. But the question came up, and I kind of thought that it was a very valid question, whether any human doctors recommended kibble or processed food for their patients. And doctors always say, eat fresh food, eat healthy food, eat fruit and vegetables, and do not eat processed food. And in veterinary medicine, it was the exact opposite. But the transition happened kind of more drastically and suddenly, because I had one patient, his name was Skokie, golden retriever, that was 2 years old. And Skokie had a very severe ear problem. And the owner and I were I was at the end of my kind of options, and I sent Skokie to a specialist, and the specialist suggested that Skokie will have his ear canals removed.
Oh,
So that was a real shocking kind of discovery that this was recommended. And I worked in Whistler, BC, which is a ski resort, and I was skiing with my friend who was feeding raw food, and she says, "Why don't you just put this dog on raw food?" So I did. And first I objected. I said, no, I can't do that. Like, that's not right. And then I did. And within a month, the dog was 50% better. And within 2 months, he was absolutely fine. So that was the last little bit. And also my cat, then I had 2 cats, and now I'm a dog person. Sorry, cat lovers. I just switched completely. But anyway, I had a cat, and she was hyperthyroid. She was on kibble too at the age of 7, and I switched her, and I treated her with homeopathy, and she lived until 21. But there were so many suddenly all the difficult patients and cases that I dealt with, many of them recovered just by giving them proper food.
Mm.
So it was a real eye-opening experience, and it happened somewhere around 1997, 98, I would say. Somewhere there, long time ago.
I know that especially in those times, raw food feeding was like taboo. Like, was you don't do that. You're gonna kill your dog and all that stuff. And so what would you say are the main benefits of feeding raw food or fresh food?
Oh my goodness, main benefits. So I think that our dogs really need the food that nature wants them to have. So, what are the main benefits? The benefits is that we actually give them the right fuel. It's like asking, what would be the benefits to put gasoline into gasoline car and diesel fuel into diesel car? Well, they don't break down. So I think the benefits is that our dogs don't get sick as often, but it's not the only, food is not the only condition for our dogs to be healthy, but it is the essential condition. And when we feed food that is heavily processed, that has ingredients that should not be even there, and also chemicals, and then it sits on the shelf for 6 months, 12 months, maybe 2 years, and then we feed it, it's not really food that nature intended. Some of the foods have grains, which is not great, but also the grain-free diets are still processed and dehydrated and cooked under high temperatures. And the ingredients often are not really the quality that dogs deserve. I have a feeling, or I believe that all animals are entitled to the goodness of the world and should not be treated any less than human. Some people ask me, what you're feeding human grade meat to your dog? Well, I don't eat meat, so I can feed it to my dog. But who said that we humans are superior to everything else, right? Like, who said that? It's just this kind of idea that we can ravage this planet without any consideration of anything else. and that we are entitled to the best of the world, and no animals are. While we are the worst animal on the planet, right? But also the most beautiful animal on the planet, because we've created beauty and art and different things. But we definitely have this polarity. And when it comes to dogs, they just need it. And you see the transformations. It really is like putting the wrong fuel in your car, in your vehicle. If we feed your dog the wrong food, number one, it's going to get sick more likely. And there may be the odd dog that will live a long life, but it's like the grandma that smokes and lives until 90, right? How often does it happen?
Exactly, yeah. Which this leads me to, you brought it, humans are, kind of doing the wrong things, which is actually destroying the soil. And I know you talk about this topic a lot too. Can you talk us about the quality of soil and the results of it?
Yeah. When it comes to soils and depletion of soils and how we treat them, it is actually very closely connected to the health of our dogs and also our own health. In the 100 years plus, we've been really excessively using and abusing soils. And what happens when you get tomatoes or produce or lettuces from California, especially in the winter, and you buy them in Canada, the manure, the compost, the leftovers never go back in the soil. Let's say if you go to Africa and you're in the savannah, you realize how broken our system is, because there the animals eat the plants, and then the carnivores eat the herbivores, and then it goes on and on until they all end up in the soil again. And this cycle is interrupted, and farmers cannot really afford to replenish the nutrient. So as a result, they produce depleted food, and the depleted food is then eaten by our animals or us, and we have depletions. And there's 37,000 billion chemical reactions going on in the body or taking place in the body every second. Like, this is a number that nobody can even comprehend, right? And if the building blocks are missing, then disease happens. And this is how I, just kind of understanding and knowing that, I created a mineral support, plant-based mineral support. That was my first nutritional supplement, called Greenmin. And we started seeing such amazing transformations that I was blown away. I never expected that it would be as pronounced, but it was amazing. Actually, I have to tell you, one of the raw pet food manufacturers in Vancouver asked me to make this mineral support to replace calcium, because she was adding bone meal in the food. And I talked to her and I said, it's not a good idea. Bone meal is cooked and it's not fully digestible, and we need to figure something else out. And she asked me to formulate this plant-based mineral support. So I did. And Greenmin is the most, the mineral support can actually make the most difference, because dogs cannot make minerals on their own. So they have to come all in food. And, the body cannot really function properly. All these different cycles and biochemistry of the body cannot function. It's like trying to make a bicycle without the parts. You cannot really make it, right? So it's an interesting one. Yeah.
So even if you're feeding fresh food, you're still depleting some form of supplement or anything.
Yeah, well, I know that there are people who say absolutely not, this is not necessary, and I often joke. I say, why don't you just? You can do two things. You can take your dog's hair, and you can measure the levels of minerals from the hair. We use actually plasma induction method, and the test that we have is called hair Q test, and the hair is basically dissolved into plasma, into very kind of atomic form. And then there's a machine that counts the different atoms of the different elements. And we get a good idea, a quantitative idea of how many minerals, calcium, magnesium, iron, and so on, selenium, what is there. And also we can measure the toxins like mercury, arsenic, lead, and others. So, sometimes I tell people, hey, I'll do the test or run the test and see. But for me, it's such a no-brainer now, because we have severely affected the cycle of nutrients in nature. We transport food at long distances and it doesn't get back to the soil. So, for me, it's a no-brainer. And everyone who believes that it's not necessary, I'd say just try it and see what the differences are. Because, maybe in a puppy until they're, and a young dog until they're 4 or 5 years, they're fine, but then they start running out of juice. I'm going to call it that way. They basically start being depleted. And I would say, not only the lifespan, but also the health span extends dramatically if you provide the essential nutrients. And it's not just minerals, it's also vitamins and omega oils and probiotics that are important for digestion, but also the immune system. But the minerals, if someone asked me, what is the number one support that you would give your dog if you didn't have anything else, I would say that's the minerals, green min. And I'm saying it humbly because I didn't expect that to be so profound and so amazing. And we kind of, we had some people taking the dog supplements, and my whole family is taking dog green min. So we finally said, it doesn't taste that great because it also has spirulina. So we are actually launching this year. We'll be launching the human green min, which is going to be called Green Min Plus, Green Min H Plus, actually. And so we finally kind of did that because people like to take it too. I've been taking it religiously.
Well, I understand that, from everything that I've learned, and you've also taught that food is the main core medicine for every creature in life, right? To have a good life, the food is very important. What would you say is next few things that are important in a dog's life?
Wow. Yeah. So I will choose to talk about one thing that most people do not understand and realize, and that is spinal health. Now, I'm not a chiropractor, but I've been working with chiropractors and physical therapists for many, many years. And the best way to imagine the spine, it is like the watering system in the garden. It basically disperses the blood and nerve flow and the energy flow in the different organs and the segments of skin and so on. And if the spine is congested, or if it's tight, or if the muscles along the spine are tight, then it affects not only the skin, but also the joints and muscles and also internal organs. So I'll give you an example. Dogs that have injuries in lumbar spine, which is very common because they like to run and chase the balls and jump up to catch frisbees. They have very tight muscles if they do that on regular basis. And they, in nature, this would not be happening 50 times an hour. It would be happening once or twice because there's not 100 rabbits or 50 rabbits running in an hour by a dog. So we kind of expose them to unnatural environment and stress. And as a result, their muscles in the lumbar spine get tight. And that's how dogs, believe it or not, get chronic diarrhea. Often, not always, but often. So some people treat their dogs with elimination diets and test for allergies, diet allergies, and then you realize it's actually back injury. It's kind of wild. And how I learned that was from my first dog, Sky, because I love to chuck the ball for him. And by the age of 6 months, he had chronic diarrheas, and I could not actually do anything with it. So I kind of gradually eliminated everything else. And I thought, what if the back is actually related to the intestinal tract? And from Chinese medicine, we know that, but not many veterinarians actually acknowledge the fact that the connection that it is so. So, the first thing that I do actually when I treat chronic diarrhea dog would be to actually obviously do the test and check for parasites and other things, make sure the diet is right, but also that the dog doesn't go through severe excessive exercise, and that it hasn't slipped or slid, and it doesn't have some sort of chronic injury that is blocking the blood, nerve, and energy flow to the intestinal tract. So it's kind of cool. So spine definitely is the number two, I'm just going to say, thing that we should look at. And it starts with using harnesses instead of collars, right? Because the neck is actually governing center for not only the front legs and the innervation of the front legs, but also it governs the internal organs, because the vagal nerve actually passes through the neck. And if it's impinged by the collar, especially if a dog is pulling, it can affect the heart function, lung function, stomach, the gut, kidneys. Like, it basically affects everything. So it's quite fascinating, but also frustrating, because there's still so many people who use choke chains and collars in pulling dogs. They think that they cannot train their dog to heel. They can, but it requires patience. Maybe sometimes 1 or 2 years, right? You're a dog trainer, you know. So yeah, spine, definitely spine.
Yes, this is mind blowing, and thank you for bringing this up, because as you say, as a dog trainer, I have this issue that people want to train their dogs and they use aversive tools or methods, including, choke chain collars and prong collars. And one other thing that I know you have talked about it and you have explained it in a way that many people, even trainers, even professionals, never thought of this, is about shock collars. Can you tell me and tell us about the effects of shock collars?
Shock collars. If I had like one thing that I could eliminate from the world, like, it would be either choke chain or shock collar, and ideally both. I would just say collars, the damaging collars. Shock collars, I think the biggest issue I have is with not only with the physical impact, but also the emotional impact on dogs. I give you an example. I go to an area where there's a dog behind an invisible fence, and he has shock collars. And this dog is usually standing behind the fence, but I can see that he wants to say hi to other people, and he wants to say hi to other dogs. And having this kind of block or inability to kind of be himself is really cruel in my mind. I also know that dogs may behave, but they become very stressed, and they're not really, it's not like, I think that our relationship with our dog should be about partnership and not dominance. We should really be careful about that. And it's not really, the dog is not trained. The dog is afraid of being shocked, right? So that's why he or she is not leaving or coming back or not doing certain things. But I think that nobody would really like to be shocked. And so that's the humane aspect of shock collars is obviously off. Second, there is a very important gland, thyroid gland, on the neck, and the shock collar usually is placed in that area. And if we shock the gland, it may actually lead to inflammation. And when there's inflammation in the thyroid gland, it can lead to the body creating antibodies against the thyroid gland cells that are inflamed, and will destroy the thyroid gland. The same thing actually happens on the physical level with choke collars. So if dogs are pulling, I actually just talked to a gentleman in the park, and he had a puppy that was pulling, and I always just kind of start gently saying, he's got a nice puppy, and then we start a conversation, and I never told him I'm a vet, but I told him, I've seen some dogs having some damage and having thyroid issues from that. And he goes, oh, that's interesting, because my last dog was hypothyroid, right? And he was a real puller. So sometimes it clicks, sometimes it doesn't, but it's really nice to try. Going back to the collars, e-collars, there's the ethical part and there's the physical part of that. And I think that they're just lazy person's way of, in quotes, training dogs. And I spent part of the year in Maui because I love it and I don't like the North Vancouver winters. But there's a training center. It's called dog sit. Sit means sit, right? So already the name tells me that I don't want to go there, because it's like, yeah, it has to be partnership. Right. But second, they have dispersed these collars left, right, and center on the island, and every second dog has a shock collar. And I'm frustrated, and I don't really know what to do. So if anyone from Maui is watching this program, please help. Tell people what shock collars are about. They're actually about dollars. They're not about helping to train dogs.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that. But one thing that I've learned from you was the effect of the shock itself, the electrical currency that it goes into the dog's body through the prongs that are used in the shock collars. That goes to the body, and what happens after it goes there?
Well, to be honest, I think that we cannot always know what will happen, right? Like we all don't always know all the side effects, but I have one rule of thumb. If there is something that is unnatural, if there is something that would not happen in nature, I just don't do it, just as a precaution. Unfortunately, I don't have hundreds and millions of dollars to hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars to do all these tests and studies, right? Like it would be nice to prove someone wrong. But I think that common sense tells us, would it be happening in nature? Definitely not. Are there energy meridians in the body? Definitely yes. Does it affect the body in a natural way? Yes. The after effects we cannot really determine, but I would say that between the stress and the emotional aspects, there's definitely some physical aspect as well, or an effect. But I cannot tell you for sure. I cannot tell you exactly what happens, but it is. I'm going to go back to choke collars. It's a little easier to explain. If someone jerks on the collar, it's like being a chiropractor without going to school, right? Like it just causes damage. Like you basically do chiropractic adjustments of a very sensitive area without knowing what we are doing. And it's not a good idea.
Right. Wow.
If you are interested in learning the negative effects of training dogs using treats or food and learn how to train your dog using play and praise as a reward system, make sure to visit sarodogtraining.com.
I'm a dog trainer that uses play and praise as a reward system. I highly try to avoid using treats or food to train dogs. And the reason for that is not only because I want to say, you have to, dominate the dog without treats, and that it's not that. It's just that for the past over 15 years, I have trained dogs without the use of treats. And that's because I strongly believe that it's not healthy mentally and physically and emotionally to use treats to train dogs, because it limits the human, it limits the dog to just respond to treats. It's not healthy, and you get dependent on treats. And the healthy part is the part that I want you to kind of expand on. Are dogs okay to be fed all the time throughout the day, using treats, something related to keto, can you expand on that?
When it comes to feeding, I think that dogs do benefit from intermittent fasting. They would fast intermittently in nature. So it's actually, there's a good reason not to give them food all the time. There's a good reason not to have the food in the bowl all the time. And there's a good reason not to give them treats all day long. This is actually an interesting topic, because this morning I wrote a little piece that will be coming out next weekend on how friends can be still friends, even though they may not always have the same experience or opinion. And I think that I actually agree with you in principle, because if we are able to train our dogs without treats, I think that's amazing. And you have to be an expert, you have to be good enough of a trainer to do that. I must confess that I'm not as good of a trainer, and therefore I sometimes use treats. But I agree with you that if there is a way of connecting with our dogs and them being excited and being more sexy than a squirrel, I think that it's always a good thing. So I agree with you in principle. I'm just not a good enough dog trainer to train perfectly without treats. But maybe when I come to North Vancouver, I will visit you and we'll just do some training.
For sure, yeah. That's the goal of this channel. The channel that I have is to educate people that you can train dogs without treats, and the treat or the reward that we use is play and praise. Dogs naturally are born They're playful. They love to be praised. They love to be rewarded by humans by just saying, good things, good boy, good girl. They get excited. They get all,
Yeah.
happy just for that. Because as a dog trainer and as a behaviorist and an educator who has been educating myself for years about dogs, I have learned that. And also there is another doctor, Dr. Gregory Burns. He had done a research that he put, I don't know if you're familiar with this or not. He placed some dogs in an MRI machine to see what their brain is active or does during a test that they offered the dog, praise and also food. And they concluded that after the test and all this research that dogs prefer the hand that gives the treat rather than the treat.
I see. I see. Wow. That's really wonderful.
That changes the whole. It changes the whole effect of training, the concept of training in general,
Yes.
and understanding the fact that it's not the food that the dog is excited that you're giving to the dog. It's that you are the most reward.
It's the hand. It's the cuddle. It's the pet.
Exactly. And you can use this to train dogs. And that's what I use to train my dogs. I mean, all of my dogs have been, being the beagles as well. They're very so-called foodie dogs. They have been trained without treats, and they will do exactly what a dog who would do with the treats. But they are on raw diet. They're not fed all the time, treats and treats. And they trained well. I can off-leash them. I can hike them off-leash everywhere, and they will do exactly what I want them to do. Not because they're dominated or they're forced to do them, because we have that interaction with, as a human to a dog, and we have that relationship, and they see me as a reward. That's the purpose of teaching dog owners to learn that it's possible to train your dog without treats, not because only that you get dependent on treats, but it's healthier. As you mentioned, they're not supposed to be fed all the time, right?
Nice. So you're sexier than a squirrel, right?
Exactly. Yes. I mean, one of the things that people have the issue with is that this is one common problem that can be solved easily. Is people, when they have a puppy, they get these toys that it looks like a squirrel. And they introduce the puppy this toy, and this puppy plays with it and learns this is, in his mind, a toy, but the dog thinks this moves just like the squirrel outside.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So
yes.
I've seen it at home. We practiced this. We played with it. So I'm going to play with it outside, right? So that's one of the things that we could eliminate. Just use toys that they don't look like squirrels, first of all, or play games that they don't require to be reactive to things that moves out.
Yeah. Yes.
Especially if you have like those working breed dogs, like you do, right? They're always hunting and looking for things. They're sensitive, but making yourself to be more sexier or more rewarding than anything else outdoors starts from home. If you take the proper steps, you will achieve exactly what you want at the end. But one of the benefits of training without treats or food also is that your dog doesn't look for food outside either. Right?
Yes. That's right.
One of the things that
I need an advice on that.
Yeah, like many dog owners, they say, "Oh, my dog is foodie, is a food motivated."
Food hound.
Yes, but it is not. I mean, better than I do. Every living creature in the world is looking for food. It doesn't mean that we are in love with food. Food is important, yes, but if I'm a foodie and you keep bringing food to me and you say, if you do this, I'm going to give this food, then you're training me to become more and more foodie.
Yes, yes.
Right? So you have to do the opposite.
You're making me hungry.
If you think I'm a foodie, if you have a dog who's foodie, you have to actually use less food. So your dog starts, you're redirecting the energy and the focus from food to something else. Maybe maybe your game.
I would look forward to having more information from you.
Right. One more question that I have is benefits of having a dog from microbial level.
You want on microbial level or other level? Microbial level.
Too. Yes, start from microbial level and go to the.
I will start the other way around. Is it okay?
Okay, sure.
Because I think that sometimes you have the people who say they don't like dogs until they get a dog and you see them transform. I would say that dogs are probably, I think it's not exaggerated, one of the best things, or maybe even the best thing that has happened to humans, because they make us so much happier, healthier. They get us out. They make us feel connected. Sometimes it's hard, especially in the COVID era. That's why there's so many puppies and dogs, which may bring some problems, right, for you as well, the level of behavioral issues. But dogs are million times better than any antidepressants. We had a period of no dog in our family for 2 years, and I could travel, I could do all these things that I wasn't doing before as much, and I didn't like it. Like being with a dog, plus dogs connect us with others, right? Like you go to a dog park or somewhere and you just have a conversation, you make friends. It's the best way to actually have good life and longevity. On the microbial level, I think, there was a study published a long time ago in Germany about kids who actually are exposed to manure and cow manure and bacteria, and they actually they were more allergy free and they were healthier. So the study basically concluded that you should move a cow in a living room in order to have healthy kids. I'm just kidding, but the premise is that bacteria, exposure to bacteria, is actually good for us and our immune system. And obviously, dogs, they kind of go around and they collect bacteria, but it actually helps our immune system. It's kind of a training. So, from the bacterial point of view and microscopic point of view, definitely there is a benefit, and it's proven. And without a doubt, dogs are, I'd say, the best things that's happened to humans, other than other good humans, which is a little difficult to come. But I want to mention something. Some people and dog lovers sometimes say, I don't really like being around people. I love dogs. And I think that it's a little more difficult to be around people because we cannot be ourselves. But I think it's worth trying to find the right friends and people. And, we often try to find friends who are not really in resonance with us. They may have different opinions and so on, but it has to be easy to be around them. And there's drama and arguments and all that. I'd say just move on. There are how many? Almost 8 billion people in the world. Like there are other people. So not fighting it and not really always, we don't need to be liked by everyone, but we have to have a few good people and definitely at least a few dogs in our lives to have good life. So anyway.
Thank you. Exactly. Exactly what you said and more. Dogs are the best thing that can happen to humans, and I appreciate all the knowledge that you shared with us today. Dr. Peter Dobias, anything else that you would like to add to this conversation?
Uh, yeah, as soon as I finished, I thought I should have said one more thing, and that is that I've lived in Vancouver for 30 years, and I can see the kind of anti-dog sentiment kind of rising up in different places and parks and so on.
Yeah.
And dog lovers, 40% population are dog lovers, and we have no access to beaches. We have very little access to parks, and everyone wants our dogs to be on leash, and then there's more aggression as a result of that, because dogs actually don't learn how to be free and communicate with other dogs. There's also another problem that many of my colleagues say puppies should not be seeing other dogs until they're 4 months old, which is like taking kids to school or to play with other kids at the age of 8 years old, right? So it just, there's so many problems, but I really want to caution everyone to build a province or country of science and no freedom, because it actually leads to more unhappiness and more aggression, and ultimately kind of unfair treatment. Like, two citizenships, right? One of them is the no dog people, who basically have all the rights, and the dog people don't. So everyone, rise up. Don't let it happen. There are many people who are afraid of dogs and they don't like dogs, but if they learned about them, if we kind of got a chance to show them how amazing dogs are, the world would be a better place. And right now I'm in Prague, Czech Republic, and it is kind of fantastic how dog friendly it is, but also how free it is. And I've seen no fights. I've seen 0 fights, and many of the dogs are neutered, and it's a little different culture in Europe, but there are no dog fights. It's kind of crazy. And so, yeah, especially in Canada, I see this kind of tendency to a lot of restrictions. And I would like to say, let's have a conversation and let's make a difference. We pay taxes. We are entitled to have our dogs in places where other people go. The beaches are beautiful, and I've seen so many dogs at the beach, and they play with, on one side of the beach and then the kids on the other. Sometimes they blend and it's all fine. We cannot really punish everyone for the few bad apples, and that's like persecuting every human being just because there are a few misbehaved ones or a few criminals. So yeah, I hope for a better dog world on that level and less restrictions.
I hope so too. I think it's just about time, and things are changing, and hopefully with the actions that me and you take, hopefully we'll be able to change everything.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that it requires a community, and it requires a concerted effort. If there's anyone who wants to do it, I'd be definitely helping with my social media and my community, and I'm sure Eddie too.
Sure, of course. Yeah. Dr. Peter Dobias, where can we learn more about you and what you offer and all everything information that you share?
Well, you can go to my website, peterdobias.com. I have a lot of articles on how to prevent problems and how to also address them. We have some free tools. We have a healthy dog food recipe maker that everyone can use to formulate and create cooked or raw diet. We have a healthy dog tool that will select custom select articles for your dog situation. And we also have about 10 people, customer service people, who answer questions to anyone who has a problem, even though, I say it's a free service. It is free service, but it is also enabled, or I can do it thanks to everyone who trusts my products and what we do. So it's just, it's a really nice symbiosis. We can help dog lovers, and they feed their dogs good food and good supplements, and as a result, we can make the world a little better place for dogs.
Great.
And I forgot to say that we also have give to causes every month, to different causes around the world: dog causes, animal causes, environmental causes. So that's the other thing that we love to do.
Nice. Thank you so much for being here, and I really appreciate having you on my show and on my channel, and appreciate the time that you took to teach us. Thank you so much for being here.
Saro, I really appreciate it too, and thank you for giving me the opportunity, and thank you for doing such a great job, and I'm sure we'll talk again.